Welcome to Ask and Learn.
So the first thing to notice is that this is a quadratic equation. If we distribute 1.2p, the highest power term we get is p squared. So the square term is a quadratic, which means if we graph it, it's going to look like a parabola. Because the coefficients next to the p squared is negative, it's going to be parabola that opens downwards. So we can graph this. Instead of the x-axis, we'll have the p, and for the y, we have dp dt. And here, when the derivative is positive, it's going to be above the p-axis, which also corresponds to the increase in the population, since the derivative represents the change in population. And similarly, when it's going to be negative, it's going to correspond to the area below the p-axis and the decrease in population. We already know that it's going to look like a quadratic. So we'll have 2 points that are on the p-axis. And we want to figure out what those points are. We already know that at those 2 points, the derivative, or dp dt, is 0, but we're not sure what p-values those will correspond to. So the next step is to set our differential equation to 0. We want to solve for the p-values. And we'll keep isolating the p. And multiplying both sides by 4,200, we get that the p is 4,200, or 0. So going back to our previous work, we see that those 2 points correspond to p being 4,200 and derivative being 0, or both p and the derivative being 0. So now we are prepared to answer all the parts. So part A asks about the increase in the population. And we see that this occurs when it's going to be above the p-axis. So p is between 0 and 4,200. So the decrease in population happens at those 2 parts of the graph. So one part is not relevant because to get there, we have to have negative population. But of course, that doesn't make sense to have a negative population, so we'll ignore this. And we'll focus on this part of the graph. So when P is 4,200 or larger, we'll have a decrease in population. And the equilibrium occurs when the derivative is zero. So dp dt is zero, and that occurs at those 2 points, and we already solved for those. That's when P is zero or P is 4,200.